Hey friends, it's Gloria and welcome back to another video. I have a little call for you. As much as I have loved purging and decluttering books in other parts of my home as of late, I've also acquired a few, and most of these were very cheap or free. And my favorite thing about making a book haul video is your comments, letting me know which books you've read and enjoyed or your experience with some of these, because they do move up my priority list. And yeah, a few of these I'm very excited about, and for most of them I don't know the full extent of their synopsis because I rarely read that, but let's get into the books. I'll show you what I got. Let's start with my favorite genre and always my biggest stack in every single book haul since I think I've started this channel is historical fiction. The first one is Take My Hand by Dolan Perkins Valdez. I have Wench on my shelf, which I need to read. This is a story set in the 1970s, and I think it has to do with non-consensual sterilization of Black women. I've just heard nothing but praises for this author and this book, so I'm very excited that I got my hands on it, and I hope to read it soonish. That's plans for all of these books, to read them soonish, but who knows when that'll be. A new release that I was so excited to find for 50 cents is Home Seeking by Carissa Chen. Now this didn't make it onto my historical fiction anticipated releases video because it came out in January, so I think I was a little bit behind when I was researching, and I'm curious how this one will be perceived for the whole year. But I think this is marketed towards people who loved Pachinko by Min Jin Lee, which I have not read for content reasons. I know people absolutely love it, but I don't think it's going to be a me book. And this is a multi-generational family story. It says that it is an epic and intimate story of family sacrifice and loyalty and the power of love to endure beyond distance and beyond time. This book follows separated lovers through 6 decades of tumultuous Chinese history of war, famine, and opportunity. So a story of long lost love, which I don't know. I feel like I need to try this book. It is a chunker. Please let me know if you've read it as a new release. I've seen just a few people read this and really love it, and otherwise I'm not really getting buzz from it, at least not on the booktube space that I'm in. So I'm curious if you read it and what you think about it. This one I'd probably be branching out of my comfort zone with reading, but I think that's a good thing because I have not read too many Asian perspective stories, which I really need to remedy when it comes to historical fiction. Another historical fiction author that I've heard nothing but wonderful things about, and I love her book design covers, is Vanessa Riley, and this is Island Queen. This came out a few years ago. I think it's a gorgeous cover. This follows the time of slavery in the Caribbean. Dorothy bought her freedom, and she is like a wealthy Black woman in the Caribbean, which is unheard of for the time period, and it's her story. I don't know, I've heard nothing but wonderful things. I kind of confuse Vanessa Riley and Susanna Kearsley sometimes in my mind, but I know they're very separate authors writing separate stories, and I think Vanessa Riley most recently is coming out with more of these stories featuring Black women and the powerful story that they have to tell of their history. Please let me know if you've read it, but I'm excited to get my hands on it and hopefully try it out soon. An author that I have read from before, and I liked her book, but I didn't love her book. This is her older title. I read The Kitchen Front, and this is The Chilbury Ladies Choir by Jennifer Ryan. I believe a few of you actually recommended this book to me. Now I just did a whole World War II historical fiction vlog where I read the first chapter of every single World War II historical fiction book I own. I'm adding another one to my shelf, and I didn't read the first chapter of this, but I feel like I should, so I can rank it into my books. So I think I might do that off camera. But this is through letters and journals. The Chilbury Ladies Choir unfolds the struggles, affairs, deceptions, and triumphs of the village choir during World War II. Really pretty little end papers of a map, and this is primarily a full epistolary novel, which is kind of fun. Small town England during World War II. It sounds really good. I'm just wondering how the execution will be, because for me, The Kitchen Front, which is also a small town English story about women and a little cooking show during the war, like the premise sounded incredible and the execution lacked a little bit for me. I'm wondering if this will be the same kind of effect, but I'm willing to try Jennifer Ryan out again. Then I have two like more rogue historical fiction picks, and again, all of these are so low stakes. I never pay full price for books. Most of these are free or 50 cents. So if I ever get feedback, it's like, Lori, this is not a book for you, then I have no trouble getting rid of it. I also am a little free library steward, so I just put any books in there that I don't think I'm gonna read. Anyways, I have seen this book around forever at Goodwill's and in little free libraries, and I've never picked it up, but more recently For the Love of Story mentioned this book in one of her videos as a favorite for her. Snow Falling on Cedars by David Gutterson. This follows the Japanese American perspective in the 1950s. So after the war, he's accused of murdering someone. It has that Japanese perspective from the war. Compelling, heart-stopping, finely wrought, flawlessly written. I do love that it's set in the Puget Sound, which is nearish me here in the Pacific Northwest. I'm always up for a book where I'm kind of familiar with the setting, because I feel like not too much stuff is set around here, but that could just be me and the stuff that I read. It is a winner of something, of the Penn Faulkner Award. I don't always love a prize-winning book, but we'll see. We'll see how this fares. I'm curious if it'll be a me kind of book, but for now I'll add it to my shelves. And then a super rogue pick. I've never read Jane Kirkpatrick. I believe she's a Christian fiction author, but the reason why I picked this one up is because this follows a singular woman character in history and what she did. So this is One Glorious Ambition, and it is about the compassionate crusade of Dorothea Dix. So Dorothea Dix has to care for her younger brothers, and she doesn't want to accept the social expectations that she has on herself and her gender. So she chooses a different life and befriends presidents and lawmakers and is fighting for social justice. This is her story, a fictionalized take on the real person that did this. I'm always up for a book like that. I'm curious how this one will be. It'll be my first Jane Kirkpatrick if I do pick it up. And then I have two what I'm calling contemporary novels. I say that when I don't really know what timeline they're set in. The first one is from an author that I have read from before and loved, Bianca Ray. I read Hum If You Don't Know the Words, which was an excellent novel, and this is her other book, If You Want to Make God Laugh. I think she's a very underrated historical fiction author that focuses on South Africa. This one specifically is set in Johannesburg, and it follows a 17-year-old Zodwa who is living in poverty during the AIDS epidemic, and she's 8 months pregnant. And then there's another wealthy socialite named Ruth. I think similarly to Hum If You Don't Know the Words, it's these two people that are coming together, their stories cross, their paths cross, coming from two seemingly different worlds in South Africa, which is very divided. And I've learned so much about South African history and perspective from Hum If You Don't Know the Words, so I'd love to dive in and read more from this author. I'm excited to have found that one. And then this next one, I had never heard of this author. He was completely not on my radar, but I keep hearing about him, and then I just stumbled across this book and I was like, wow, this feels very serendipitous. I think I need to read him. I'm sad I didn't pick up one of his books in March for Irish reading, but I could do it any time of year. It doesn't really matter. Niall Williams, and this is Happiness. I heard about him from one booktuber and then another booktuber, and then someone recommended him in my comments, and then I put him on my TBR for the year, and then I stumbled upon this book. And that's just kind of how he's just completely entered my forefront mind of wanting to read. This is promised to be a very slow moving, character driven, town driven little story about a small tiny Irish town and the people that live in it and the things that happen. I'm wondering if it'll be too slow for me, but I'm also kind of into just in it for the ride and see how it goes. When I'm in the mood for it, I feel like this will be very refreshing and just peaceful to read. A hug of a book, hopefully. Maybe it's a little depressing, I don't know, but I hope that I'm into it, and I hope that I like him since I keep hearing about him. Before I end with nonfiction, let me mention the 4 middle grade books that I happened upon, adding a couple more to my shelves. I don't have too many. The first one I couldn't pass up because it looked so stinking cute. A Nest for Celeste by Henry Cole, a story about art, inspiration, and the meaning of home. And this is a little middle grade with really sweet little illustrations. And it's a story of a mouse. I remember loving The Tale of Despero. I need to reread that book. I don't know if that is a worthy comparison, but a cute little story about a mouse sounds like a fun read. Then I found The Ichabod by J.K. Rowling. When this came out several years back, I haven't really heard anyone, singing its praises, receiving it super highly. A collection of stories, and I know that she crowdsourced actual drawings from her fans, like from children, into the story, but I couldn't really tell you anything about this, but I found it and I'd like to read it. Next, I have 2 nonfiction middle grades. I Will Always Write Back, How One Letter Changed 2 Lives. This is a true story of an all-American girl and a boy from Zimbabwe and the letter that changed both of their lives forever. I've heard fantastic things about this middle grade nonfiction. I think this will just be a very wholesome, powerful, wonderful read. It's what I've been told, so would love to have that read. And then finally, I found a cute little Women in Science, 50 Fearless Pioneers Who Changed the World. This would have been perfect for Women's History Month, but I didn't get to reading it. But cute little illustrations about different women in history, fun little pops of color and illustration, and I think this will be a very sweet little read through. I don't know if I'd keep it on my shelves after I read it, but I'd love to read it and then pass it along. Since I found this in a little free library, I would happily pass it along for someone else to stumble upon. And then lastly, I'll end with the 4 nonfiction books that I have acquired. The first one is The Montessori Toddler, Parent's Guide to Raising a Curious and Responsible Human Being by Simone Davies. I'm always up for reading a parenting book. I've read a few. I've been lacking lately, but I feel like this will be helpful. I'm interested in the Montessori way of things when it comes to kid raising. I didn't read I know she has the baby Montessori book, or the Montessori baby, and this is the Montessori toddler, which my kid's now a toddler because he's 18 months. So maybe there'll be some fun little activities, ideas in here, so that'll be fun to peruse through. Always love to find a relevant parenting book in a little free library. Those are very often around. Next, a very, very popular talked about book, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. Literally heard nothing but praises for this book, and I know this is going to be a tough read in terms of like, okay, what do we do? What do we do about raising our kids and the issues that social media and the internet and all of that has for us, and the boundaries we should set and how we should protect our kids from screens and all that stuff. I'm very grateful to be on the cutoff of my exposure to social media. It was like right on the tail end of high school, so I didn't grow up with it. Really got into it when I was in college, which feels like an appropriate time, so I can't imagine the stuff that Gen X and Gen Alpha, and I don't know if Finn is Gen Alpha or Gen Beta now or whatever the numbers are, but they're gonna be going through some stuff, and this maybe hopefully will be illuminating. This next one found in a little free library, but the title and subtitle got me curious. I'm very interested to see if this will be for me or if I'll be like, nah. But it is The Year of Biblical Womanhood, how a liberated woman found herself sitting on her roof, covering her head and calling her husband master. I don't know about that, but I'm very curious about her story. It could be super random and weird, but it could be really interesting. So, strong-willed and independent Rachel Held Evans couldn't sew a button on a blouse before she embarked on a radical life experiment, A Year of Biblical Womanhood. Intrigued by the traditionalist resurgence that led many of her friends to abandon their careers to assume traditional gender roles in the home, Evans decides to try it for herself, vowing to take all of the Bible's instructions for women as literally as possible for a year. Sounds pretty extreme, but again, I'm just curious about this one. I don't know if I'll get to it, but if the fancy strikes, perhaps. And then lastly, I love a good celebrity memoir now and again, and I found Unashamed by Lecrae. He is a Christian rapper. Two-time Grammy-winning rap artist Lecrae learned the lesson: if you live for people's acceptance, you'll die from their rejection. So this is a story of his life through childhood abuse, drugs and alcoholism, rehab, abortion, unsuccessful suicide attempt, and all the journey ahead of how he became a successful musician and someone who follows Jesus. I have been a fan of Lecrae, not recently. I haven't listened to anything new he's come out, but in my high school, college days, I would listen to a Lecrae song. I've seen him live a few times, so that's kind of fun. I'd love to read his story. Hey, Future Glory here, mentioning a couple books that I just bought that I came home with that I totally forgot to mention, but since I already filmed this, I didn't want to wait. The first one is The Lions of Fifth Avenue by Fiona Davis. I actually unhauled a lot of her books. I still have not read from this author, but the main book that I do want to read is this one because it's set in the New York Public Library. All of her books are set in New York and have to do with the history of the building, like a famous building there, and the New York Public Library I would love to read about. The other ones not completely grabbing my attention or that I particularly cared for. I tried the first chapter of The Address and I didn't like it, so I think I'd pass that book along in the little free library. This one was only 50 cents and I took it home, even though I haven't read from her yet, but I need to. So that one. I picked up one out of my comfort zone. I don't read thrillers very often these days, but I did really like, I think it was this author, Alice Feeney. I think I read Rock, Paper, Scissors and I liked it. Could be a different author, I get them all confused, but Sometimes I Lie, I heard great things about. This is about a woman who wakes up in a hospital and she can't move and she can't speak and she can't open her eyes, but she hears everything, which reminds me of a movie that I loved. I used to love. I'll put a picture up here about a guy that wakes up in the middle of a surgery and he can hear everything, but he can't move. And I remember after that movie, I was like, oh my gosh, if that ever happens to me, I would freak out. That would be awful. But anyway, she thinks that her sister or maybe her husband had something to do with her injury or something happening to her. So that sounds super intense and really crazy and kind of good. So maybe this one I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I bring this home? The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. I now own so many of her books. I think this is the 5th one of hers and I've yet to read her, but I am changing that. I am reading The Secret Keeper. I'm reading that in the next month or two. Like for sure, April, May, it's happening. I'm reading it. I promise. So I will at least have read a Kate Morton to see if I even like her writing, which I really think and I hope that I will. I'm adding The Forgotten Garden because why not? I might as well add that one to my TBR. And then a classic. I picked up O Pioneers by Willa Cather. I heard Tiffany from Beautiful Minutia read this more recently in the last year and absolutely love it. I think it's promised to be like beautiful pastoral writing, nature writing, atmospheric, that kind of thing. That's all I need to know. I would love to read another classic that I love. I have so many classics and I haven't been reading them very much lately, but adding this one to my collection. And finally, I found this in my library bookstore, 50 cents each. I was thinking about if I needed to bring these books home and right before I started BookTube in the like February of 2020 or like March 2020, right before I started really watching BookTube, I got rid of all of my books. All the books that I read as a teen, teenager, young adult, and this particular series I remember being so influential to me. I think even more so than like how Hunger Games was for some people or Twilight was for some people, which Twilight was big for me. But I more particularly remember the emotional impact of the Ugly series, and I want to reread these as an adult to see how bad they are, because I feel like people talk about Twilight and they still love it. People talk about the Hunger Games and how amazing it is. I think that one still holds up. Clearly, because people are still reading it. The Uglies, I feel though, at least in BookTube, and the people who are around my age who must have read these, they don't really talk about them. So I'm wondering if they're not very good. And I know that there's a new movie that came out and it looks awful. Like, it looks like really bad AI, and just it's not bringing to mind the way that I picture the world. I feel like Uglies is on the same bar with me as like The Host by Stephanie Meyer. I'm feeling like maybe I'm confusing those, which I have The Host on my shelves and I do want to reread. But the Ugly series, I ended up getting the whole series. Uglies, Pretties, Specials, Extras, and then some weird bonus book, but I took them all home. Will I read them? Hopefully. Maybe I need to do a whole themed childhood rereading vlog of books that were impactful to me when I was younger. Anyways, those are some more books that I brought home with me back to Old Gloria. And that's that. Those are some of the books that I have acquired recently since, I don't know when my last book haul was, towards the end of 2024. So not too bad, but excited to read a few of these. Like I said, please let me know if you've read any of them and what your thoughts are. And thanks so much for watching today with me. I'll see you guys in another video soon. Bye.